They expected blood. They expected screams. They brought a human across the stars to slay a beast that had destroyed armies and broken civilizations. What they didn't expect was that the human would sit down in front of it, unarmed, and listen. That choice didn't just save a monster, it terrified an empire. Welcome to VoidborneHFY. This is where humans are not shown as weak, where strength isn't measured by firepower, but by decisions that change the galaxy. They didn't bring the human because they trusted him. They brought him because they wanted to prove something. The Tirak Coalition had ruled their sector of the galaxy for over 1,000 cycles. They were conquerors, yes, but more than that, they were judges. They decided which species were dangerous, which were useful, and which were disposable. Humanity, they believed, was predictable, violent when cornered, loyal to its own, eager to dominate when given power. So when the Coalition prepared the right of dominion, they chose a human as the final witness, a test, a spectacle, a warning. The beast waited on the surface of Vathrin, a world barely fit for settlement. No oceans, no gentle skies, just black stone plains and crimson storms that never truly ended. At the center of it all lived the creature the Coalition called Kael'thar, their deadliest beast, a biological impossibility. Kael'thar was older than the Coalition itself. It had survived planetary sterilizations, orbital bombardments, and the collapse of entire ecosystems. Its presence disrupted electronics. Its thoughts somehow interfered with neural activity. It was not merely a predator, it was a force. Every species inducted into the Coalition had to face Kael'thar in some way. Most sent armies, some sent champions. All lost something. Killing it was not required. Dominating it was. The human they brought was named Aaron Cole. No grand reputation, no legendary kill record, just a former planetary engineer turned exploration specialist. When the Coalition observers saw his file, many scoffed. He is not a warrior. He lacks aggression markers. He shows excessive empathy. The High Arbiter merely clicked its mandibles. Then he will be instructive. Aaron stood on the observation platform as the storm winds howled below. Kael'thar was visible even from orbit, its massive form coiled within a crater miles wide. A Coalition officer approached him. "You understand why you are here, human?" Aaron nodded slowly. "You want me to kill it?" "No," the officer corrected. "We want to see how you try." Aaron didn't answer. He was looking at the data feed. The heat scars, the radiation burns, the neurological damage mapped across the beast's body. This thing had been attacked for centuries, again and again, never allowed to rest. They deployed him alone. No squad, no support drones, just a dropship and a set of basic tools. When the ramp lowered and the heat hit his face, Aaron felt it immediately. Not fear, pressure, like the world itself was asking him why he was here. Kael'thar stirred. The ground trembled. Coalition observers leaned forward. This was the moment. This was where humans always showed their true nature. Aaron walked. Not fast, not slow. He didn't raise a weapon. Kael'thar lifted its head. Its eyes, massive, ancient, and painfully aware, locked onto him. Several Coalition minds recoiled. Direct eye contact usually caused neural shock. Aaron felt the pressure spike. Memories surfaced uninvited. Earth, cities, animals pushed into extinction zones, creatures labeled threats because they didn't fit neatly into plans. He stopped walking and sat down. Coalition channels erupted. Why has he stopped? Is this a fear response? Prepare termination protocols. But Aaron didn't run. He placed his palms on the scorched stone beneath him. "I know," he said quietly. The translators hesitated. The words didn't map cleanly. Kael'thar tilted its head. "I know what it's like," Aaron continued, "to be told your existence is a problem." The beast moved closer. Each step shattered stone. Aaron stayed where he was. "You didn't choose this," he said. "They chose you." The pressure changed. Not weaker. Different. Less hostile. Kael'thar's thoughts brushed his mind. Not words. Impressions. Pain. Endurance. Endless cycles of violence disguised as tradition. Aaron's breath caught. So this was the truth. The Coalition didn't keep Kalthar to test species. They kept it to justify themselves. Aaron reached into his pack. Slowly, carefully, he removed a neural harmonizer, experimental, unfinished, designed for interspecies communication. Coalition observers panicked. That device is unapproved. Aaron activated it anyway. The feedback nearly dropped him to his knees. But for the first time, Kalthar spoke. You hurt me because you fear what you cannot end. Aaron swallowed. Yeah, he whispered. Humans used to do that too. The beast's massive form lowered. Not submissive, tired. Above them, the Coalition demanded action. Human, complete the rite. Aaron stood and turned his back on the beast. That single gesture sent shockwaves through the observers. No species had ever done that. Trusting a creature like Kalthar was unthinkable. Aaron looked up at the watching ships. You don't want a hunter, he said. You want permission. Silence. You want to prove your right to rule. Right to destroy. Aaron faced Kalthar again and extended his hand. I won't kill you. The beast leaned forward. Not with claws. With its forehead. The harmonizer flared. Old wounds began to close. Kalthar roared, not in rage but release. The Coalition watched their symbol collapse. Not physically. Conceptually. If Kalthar could choose peace, what did that say about the right? About them? Kalthar turned away, but it didn't retreat. It positioned itself between Aaron and the Coalition fleet. A living barrier. A declaration. Coalition command scrambled. Weapons armed, Aaron shouted into the uplink. If you fire, he said, voice shaking with fury, you prove everything you accuse us of being. The High Arbiter hesitated. For the first time in centuries, the shot never came. Instead, the fleet withdrew. Not because they were defeated, but because they were afraid. Afraid of a species that could stand before absolute power and choose not to use it. In the cycles that followed, the story spread. Not as propaganda, as warning. They brought a human to slay their deadliest beast. He didn't. He listened. He understood. And by doing so, he broke a system that had survived for 1,000 years. Kalthar was never hunted again. Vathrin became a protected world. And across Coalition space, a new truth settled in. Humans were not terrifying because they destroyed what opposed them. They were terrifying because sometimes they didn't. Aaron looked at the sky one last time. The stars reflected in his eyes. He had come alone, but he had changed everything. The ripple effects were already spreading. Every observer who had witnessed Aaron's actions carried the story back to their fleets. Every report challenged the very foundation of the Coalition's authority. You saw the human? One officer asked another. They didn't attack. They spoke to it. And it obeyed? No, it chose. The word choice echoed through every command chamber. Species that had long relied on fear began questioning the rituals that defined their existence. No law, no decree, no tradition could explain what had happened. Aaron himself returned to his dropship. He was exhausted, yes, but exhilarated. Not from victory, not from conquest, but from understanding. He had faced the deadliest creature in the sector and survived, not because of firepower, but because of empathy. Because he had listened, because he had respected life even when the galaxy demanded he destroy it. On Vathrin, Kalthar retreated to its crater, curling around the ruins of centuries of imprisonment and torment. Its massive body shifted slowly like an ancient mountain breathing. And yet when it moved, there was no threat, only presence. Aaron studied the alien world one last time. The wind howled through the barren plains, carrying the scent of mineral storms and scorched rock. He could feel Kalthar's awareness brushing against his mind, an acknowledgement, not a warning. When he transmitted back to the Coalition, his message was simple. You wanted a spectacle. You wanted a hunter. I offered understanding. Consider your right incomplete. The High Arbiter did not respond immediately. It had no precedent for defiance coupled with peace. Across the coalition, whispers began. Reports of humans, of their strange ability to connect, to reason, to show restraint. These stories spread faster than the fastest fleet. Some feared them, some envied them. All reconsidered what it meant to dominate. Aaron knew he could not stay. He was a human alone, but he had sparked a chain of thought that would continue far beyond his presence. Kael'thar observed him silently. A mutual understanding passed between them, human and beast, predator and witness. And in that silence, the galaxy changed. Aaron left Vathrin, but the story of his encounter traveled faster than any fleet. Every world in the coalition received whispers, then reports, then formal transmissions about the human who faced Kael'thar and did not strike. Commanders and arbiters debated endlessly. How could one human alter the perception of a system that had survived 1,000 cycles? How could empathy triumph where weapons had failed? The human species, once underestimated, now became a subject of scrutiny. Every species that had thought them primitive or chaotic began re-evaluating. Perhaps humans are not predictable, some muttered. Perhaps they are. Dangerous in ways we do not understand, others concluded. Aaron did not seek glory. He did not demand recognition. He returned to his ship quietly, watching the stars glide past. Yet he could feel the weight of change. The subtle shift in the galaxy's balance of power. Kael'thar, meanwhile, remained on Vathrin. It had endured centuries of aggression and now it had choice. It moved across its crater like a living mountain, surveying its domain without fear. The ancient creature had been acknowledged, not conquered. It understood the human had given it something it had never received: respect. In the days that followed, other species attempted similar trials. They brought champions, armies, and weapons, but none could replicate what Aaron had done. It was not about strength, cunning, or strategy. It was about connection. Aaron's story became legend, not in the usual sense of conquest, but as a demonstration of what it meant to be human, to listen, to feel, to act with purpose even when the galaxy demanded violence. The coalition slowly learned the lesson. Not all species responded to fear. Not all power came from domination. And Aaron, a single human among billions, had proven it. Above Vathrin, Kael'thar rested, its massive form silhouetted against the crimson storms, a silent sentinel, a symbol of endurance, and a reminder that one human's choice could echo across stars. As weeks passed, the coalition attempted to analyze Aaron's methods. Reports flooded in from every system, humans approaching dangers without aggression, negotiating instead of destroying, observing instead of reacting. Some called it recklessness. Others called it genius. Aaron himself remained calm, unaware of the legend forming around him. To him it was simple: every life had value. Every creature, no matter how terrifying, deserved recognition. Back on Vathrin, Kael'thar's presence became a subject of study. Scientists attempted to measure its neural responses, its territorial instincts, its reactions to threats. But the beast no longer behaved predictably. The human had changed it, not forcibly, not with fear, but through patience and understanding. Across the coalition, debate raged. How do you counter a species that does not play by our rules? How do you dominate those who refuse to yield? Leaders argued, commanders prepared, and philosophers wondered if the galaxy had misjudged humans entirely. Aaron's actions spread beyond Vathrin. Colonized worlds that had feared humans began to consider alliances. They realized that strength was not always firepower. Sometimes it was clarity. Sometimes it was restraint. Sometimes it was listening. The High Arbiter convened an emergency council. A species that had once commanded fear was now questioning everything. The right of dominion had failed in its purpose, not because the human had won, but because he had shown a different way. Aaron, oblivious to politics, explored new worlds quietly. He cataloged species, learned behaviors, and observed conflicts from a distance. Every interaction he had subtly shifted opinions, altered expectations, and reshaped alliances. Kael'thar, meanwhile, had become a silent partner. It allowed Aaron to study it, to learn, and to communicate in ways the Coalition could never understand. It was a bond of mutual respect, unspoken but undeniable. The galaxy began to whisper a new truth. Humans were not the strongest in a traditional sense. They did not rely solely on weapons or fleets. Their power lay in unpredictability, intellect, and the courage to act differently. And one human, by refusing to kill a beast, had shown the universe just how formidable that could be. The ripple effects of Aaron's actions reached every corner of the Coalition. Military tacticians struggled to revise their doctrines. No species responds the same way twice, they admitted. What happens when humans refuse to fight? Aaron continued his journey, unaware of the storm he had created. He explored ancient ruins, cataloged alien species, and recorded anomalies that had gone unnoticed for centuries. Every discovery further reinforced his quiet philosophy. Observation and understanding often outweighed brute force. Caelthar became both companion and teacher. Its immense form towered over Aaron during planetary surveys, yet it moved with a grace that belied its size. Aaron learned to interpret its signals, subtle shifts of muscle and thought, understanding the ancient intelligence that had survived so long. Coalition leaders debated the implications. How could one human alter perceptions of power across multiple star systems? Some feared the precedent it set. Others admired the strategy. Aaron's calm defiance inspired others across the galaxy. Small communities began to emulate his approach, engaging dangerous creatures without lethal intent, seeking understanding before confrontation. It was slow, imperfect, and often misunderstood, but it worked. The story of Aaron and Caelthar became more than legend. It became a standard of conduct in diplomatic and exploratory missions. To see a human calmly facing a deadliest beast and choosing empathy over violence changed minds. It challenged the core of how species measured strength and success. Yet Aaron never sought glory. He did not lecture. He did not boast. He simply acted with conviction. And the galaxy took notice. Coalition fleets reconsidered their priorities. Explorers reevaluated old laws and rituals. Philosophers pondered the meaning of power and dominance. Aaron's journey was far from over. But one truth was clear. The galaxy would never view humans the same way again. In the shadows of Vathrin, Caelthar watched. And for the first time in centuries, it was at peace. The legend of Aaron Cole spread beyond Coalition borders. Independent worlds, once skeptical of humans, began to take notice. They had heard tales of their unpredictability, of their resilience, and of their ability to act where others would destroy. Aaron continued exploring, encountering species both hostile and benign. He did not fight unless absolutely necessary. Instead, he observed, communicated, and sometimes simply waited. Caelthar accompanied him when appropriate, though it mostly remained on Vathrin, a silent guardian and mentor. Its presence alone had a profound effect on those who met it. Civilizations that once sought to dominate feared it now, not for its power, but for the intelligence and patience it demonstrated. Coalition strategists attempted to replicate Aaron's approach. They sent their champions hoping to prove humans were an anomaly. All failed. All underestimated the subtle power of understanding, empathy, and calm determination. Aaron's reputation grew. Stories of him were told in hushed tones aboard starships and council chambers. The human who tamed the untamable. The human who made an ancient beast pause, consider, and cooperate. He remained humble, never seeking credit. His goal was never recognition. It was always discovery and understanding. Yet the effect was undeniable. Entire fleets adjusted their behavior. Entire systems reconsidered how they approached conflict. Caelthar, meanwhile, had become more than just a subject of study. It was a symbol of what could happen when fear was set aside, when understanding was chosen over aggression. Aaron often reflected on the contrasts, the Coalition's reliance on domination versus humanity's unpredictable approach. What others saw as weakness, he had learned to wield as strength. What others saw as chaos, he turned into opportunity. The galaxy slowly began to respect humans, not just for their tenacity, but for their wisdom. And somewhere deep within Vathrin, Kael'thar watched the stars, knowing the human had changed more than a single beast. He had changed the entire perspective of an empire. Time passed, and Aaron's influence continued to ripple across the galaxy. Coalition leaders could no longer ignore the message he had delivered. Strength was not always in conquest, but in understanding, patience, and perspective. Reports came from worlds that had once feared humans. Alliances shifted. New treaties were formed, and old conflicts were paused for negotiation. Aaron himself remained focused on exploration. He charted uncharted systems, cataloged unknown species, and observed phenomena that had long been dismissed as too dangerous or impossible. His approach was always deliberate, always thoughtful. Kael'thar occasionally appeared, its massive form both awe-inspiring and calming. To many observers, the human and the beast seemed to share an unspoken bond, an understanding that bridged species, intellect, and experience. Stories of their encounters circulated widely. Humans were no longer considered predictable, no longer a minor species to be dismissed or manipulated. They had shown through Aaron that true power was multifaceted. It was measured not only by firepower or numbers, but by insight, restraint, and courage to act differently than expected. Young humans across colonies were inspired by his example. They trained not just for combat, but for diplomacy, exploration, and the ethical understanding of life across the galaxy. Kael'thar became a legend as well, a symbol of the ancient and unknowable, tamed not by violence but by patience and empathy. It reminded every observer that the deadliest creatures and the most entrenched systems of power could be approached in new ways. Aaron, once an unremarkable engineer, had changed the course of the coalition, the perception of humans and the fate of countless species. He had faced a beast older than empires, unyielding and terrifying, and instead of destruction, he offered understanding. The galaxy remembered, the coalition reconsidered, and humanity had proven again that sometimes the greatest victories are not won with weapons, but with courage, wisdom, and heart. Aaron looked to the stars, one last time before departing for another unexplored system, and Kael'thar watched silently, a living testament to the power of choice. The legend of the human who refused to kill, a deadliest beast, would never be forgotten. A single act of empathy had reshaped the galaxy, and one human had shown the universe what it truly meant to be unpredictable, resilient, and human. If you enjoy HFY stories where humanity doesn't just fight, but thinks, endures, and defies expectations, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join VoidborneHFY, because some stories aren't just told, they are remembered.